Welcome to the Driven Career Podcast. This is a space where we talk about professional life and personal development to inspire you to overcome the challenges and grow in your career. In today's episode, I sit with Helen Stepchuk. She's the founder of a marketing agency and also work as a coach. We talk about how your mindset, the way you speak, the way you show up can help you grow in your career. Helen shares simple tips on how you can stand out, speak with confidence, and handle changes even when things feel a little bit uncertain or when AI is changing everything at work. If you want to grow, change, and lead your career, this episode is for you. So here we are with Helen Stepchuk. Hi, Helen. Good morning. How are you today?
Amazing now that I'm with you here.
So let's start from your introduction. Just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do nowadays, Helen.
Yeah, well, I started a marketing agency 17 years ago. So that's been my primary work that I've been doing. And recently I started doing coaching as well, primarily marketing, business, and life coaching.
So the reason why I thought this conversation would be interesting, Helen, is because you've been running your business for quite a while. It's been what, more than 20 years?
Yes. Well, in marketing for over 20 years and this business specifically 17.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So people that listen to us, they're the majority driven professionals. They're trying to understand what does that mean, the growth. So because you are at the other side of the table and seeing so many things happening, interacting with other companies, and you're a communication specialist, my first question for you, we would start from your experience of building your company. So what was the main mindset shift that was important for you to grow as a founder and then as a leader?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would like to share first what kind of mindset I had in the beginning when I started. And I think for anyone who wants to grow, it's important to have that growth mindset, right? So there's growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Growth mindset implies that you're open, you're curious. That's the primarily feeling that you're being driven by. You're curious and you're open to new opportunities. So that's how I started my business. And that curiosity was directed towards my customers. So in marketing, it was 17 years ago. Digital marketing was just starting. It was, a new thing for many businesses. So, it was a lot of education and, on the other hand, looking at what customers need. And all of my services, all of my offerings were built on that, not what I thought they needed, but what they actually needed. And I really believe that that was the mindset that got me started and that business grew because I had to shift a few times in the beginning. Well, for the whole 17 years. I mean, and even right now, if you want to grow, you have to constantly shift and respond to what's happening around you. For me, that was the beginning, and most important, I would say, piece why my business grew in the beginning.
Okay. I hear that you're saying the main mindset shift was understanding first what was out there, opposing to what you thought that could be good, right? Because I think that whenever you interact with the company, and that's the same applies for employees or any driven professional, I think we come with a lot of ideas, and which is great. We have to develop that, have a voice and express our ideas and apply our knowledge. But at the same time, find that balance of first understanding what's needed opposing to what I think that's needed. And I noticed in your LinkedIn profile, the section about me actually says, I am very curious is my
Superpower, yeah.
my superpower.
Yeah.
And that totally comes along to what you do, because as you said, you're trying to understand first what they need so you can help based on what is the actual need. And that applies in the workplace. I've seen in my experience in HR, people, they think how that could be done, which is great. Again, sharing opinions and ideas, but trying to understand first use that curiosity. Also,
Yeah.
take that from Helen. Use that as your superpower, being curious, understanding what's needed. So then you
Yeah. And
can shift.
I'll give you an example in marketing. So clients would come to us and say they need a website or they need a campaign. And as creatives, as marketers, we have a lot of ideas. And exactly as you're saying, and we see their business in a certain way and we say, okay, you should do this and this and that. And that's exactly when I can then predict that things are not going to go well, because we're there not to show how much we know and how amazing work, what kind of amazing work we can do, but it's to meet the need that the customer has. So our goal was always to see what is the need and then suggest options. So value is always focused on the meeting the need of the client. Yeah, I like the analogy. Same at work. It's like anywhere, right? Anywhere we focusing at what other people need first.
And one of the things that you're a specialist as well, is in communication. And that's important because communication, especially in the workplace, actually anywhere, is it's super, super important. So let's start from what does actually look like for someone who wants to grow their visibility on their career, making the use of their strategic communication.
Let's go back to the mindset for a moment before I answer that, because before we can communicate and speak and share our ideas, we need to understand them and process them in our own mind. And back to that question about mindset shift, one mindset shift that happened to me a few years ago when I hired a coach. I hired a leadership coach to help me to be a better leader, to work better with my team, manage people better, and improve my communication skills. Essentially, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And during one coaching session, I was sharing a situation I was in with my team, and I was describing. I said, this is what happened, this is what they said, what they did, and then what I said, what I did. So describing. And she asks me, oh, why did you do that? Why did you say that? Or why did you behave in this certain way? And my answer was, well, that's just because the way I am. That's just my personality. And her answer that's probably was the most transformative, not answer, but her question, I guess her statement after she said, oh, is that so? And in that moment, a light bulb went in my head when I said that's just the way I am. And then she said, is that so? And I was just like, I even have goosebumps right now, like how powerful it is. And I realized that my whole life, I thought I had growth mindset. And that's where I would say be very careful to assume. And that's again, going back to curiosity, be curious. Do I have growth mindset? Am I curious? Right? And challenge that, because in that moment, I realized that, oh, maybe that's not just the way I am. Maybe I can change. Maybe all of those personality tests that I've been taking my whole life and I loved and I still love, and I think they're valid points to explore and know your personality, but maybe they don't define me. Maybe I can change. Maybe I can grow. And that's exactly what growth mindset is. And from that point, a lot of things changed. I think I really see it as a turning point in my life and my career and my business and just my personal life. That's how I started communicating differently from that point on, because my mindset, my mind literally started to change and be more open to what things could be, not how they should be.
That's how powerful those questions from coaching, they really transform, as you said, it really transforms not only our professional life. I think we come first with that need of one thing that you want to transform in your life. And the result is it really shifts every part of your life because you start thinking differently. I think I have an example, like from when I had similar situations because I used to create assumptions of everything. So when I was also working with coaching, it was the main thing for me that helped me to understand my communication was that I would share in my coaching sessions, oh, this and that happened. And again, she would ask me the questions and I would say, well, because I think this and because I think that. And then she would say, but who said that?
Yes.
And I was like, well, this is how it is. No, this is when you learn that we cannot create assumptions and the power of asking questions, right? So that is when you actually understand what is the real situation. And in the workplace, or I think anywhere in our lives, in a relationship, it's not creating the assumptions. It's asking the question and clarifying, understanding. From my understanding, that is the number one beauty of the communication. But back to our strategic communication, how do you see that helping the professionals growing in their careers and having visibility and even like building their reputation in a workplace?
One of my favorite quotes about communication is the biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. So very often we communicate and we think, oh, I've already told them this. Oh, I've already communicated my needs or what I want. And the result, it does not match your expectations. Most likely it's because you think that you communicated, but people didn't really receive it or they didn't understand it. Again, because we do live with our own worldview in our minds and our assumptions, right? So part of communication is really understand, okay, what do they know about this thing? And how do I need to communicate so they understand it? So some of the practical examples, again, I will go back in marketing or web design, the most visual example as we all use that technology. When we build a website, we say, how do we want our audience to feel? What do we want them to think? What do we want them to know? So, and it's not only in marketing when we design campaigns or we write content. It's not only in marketing, but in everyday life, right? So if you're at work and you're communicating with your boss, what is it? Or with your colleagues or with your team, what is the goal of your communication? That's number one, right? So very often, I think if we go even more practical in meetings, very often meetings are such a time waster, right? Because very often there is no agenda, there is no goal or outcome, what do you want to achieve, or sometimes it's just a conversation and there's no action points taken after a meeting. So those things like making you are communicating to achieve a result. So if you're going into a communication situation, whether meeting or even talking to a friend, what is your goal? Why are you communicating? Right? So it's not just talking, but having a goal, what do you want to achieve? And then all of your conversation will be led by that idea.
And I think often we don't think about that. As you said, we're just in a conversation and we don't have that intentionality. But in the workplace, in the corporate world, that is key, because if you don't think about how you want others to see you, then how are you building up your visibility? I think we don't really think about those things, but that's important, especially in a world nowadays that everyone can talk, everyone can go on the internet and all of that. But where is the intentionality about when you're talking to anyone in a workplace or anyone, even like your friends?
Yes. You know what? That's a really good point because again, I'll go back to business owners. When we work with business owners, sometimes they say, oh, our services and our business, our product is so amazing. The results speak for themselves, or our product speaks for itself. We don't need marketing. Well, no, it doesn't. The results, and similar scenario in a work environment, if someone, a high performer or they're a hard worker and they're doing their work really well, and they think, well, results speak for themselves. Well, they don't. They don't speak for themselves. They need to be articulated. They need to be shown, and it needs to be, and very often in work environment, managers may not have that process of tracking progress or tracking growth, right? So then it's very easy to get lost, and it's like, oh, well, you might even start doubting yourself. Like, am I a good performer? Am I performing well? I don't know, right? So you need to first track your own input and then have a conversation, communicate with the manager. Again, going back to that value, right? It's like, am I adding value to this company? Am I doing what they need me to do, right? And then am I doing it in the way that I can deliver, in the way that my gifts and talents and my capabilities and experience are set?
Is so key, because it's the same rule applies in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to those professionals. They're very good professionals, Helen. And I have seen this, especially when we are running the performance reviews or those calibration meetings where you have all the managers. And if you don't speak up, if you don't use the communication to demonstrate the work that you have been doing, if you don't have a strategy for that, then oftentimes you're really letting your growth for somebody else. So then what I have seen is that in these meetings with the managers, they might not recognize, not because you're not doing a great job, but because you're not communicating your work properly. So we can assume that our manager knows everything that we are doing. And also, depending on what you're doing at work, for example, I was working as a generalist. I was working with so many different people and different departments across the company. So how do I expect that my manager knows everything that I'm doing? How do they know that the value that I'm adding, it's not only in the HR, but how am I contributing to all the departments? So as you said, we can't really rely on thinking that my product speaks for itself or my work speaks. Yes, that might, but our communication is key. And with that, I wonder, what is your opinion in terms of how can we communicate better, but being careful about bragging for ourselves?
What do you mean?
I mean, having that balance between trying to demonstrate and show my work, but at the same time, regulating my communication in the sense that you don't go over an ego. Because that's one thing that sometimes we see when we are doing the debrief for interviews, for example. It's that fine line between that candidate that comes so confident, but it's confident, but at the same time humble. You can see that through their communication. Or you have someone that is so confident that at some point that is a little bit higher, that comes across as a little bit bragging or ego or a little bit suburb. So do you have any thoughts about that in terms of communication?
Yeah, I think it goes back again to the value, because when you're talking, you're telling someone something, think about what do they need to know, right? Like, what do they need to know about you? And if you go about, oh, and I know this and then that, and I know this and this and that, then it will definitely come across as bragging, because it also comes across as maybe you're nervous, and understandably, that's why you have to prepare for interviews, right? But just be very specific and strategic and go from the need, right? So if it's an interview for a job, or if it's a meeting, then, or if you're already working, go back from what is the goal of this interview? What is the goal? What do they need to know about me again? And then talk only about those things, right? So then you're being factual. You're not making things look bigger than they are. So that's specifically for interviews or meetings. But also in terms of ongoing communication with your manager, it starts with the goal, right? When you get a job, you already have an idea what you want in your career, maybe, right? If you are fortunate to have a good manager, or I would say experienced, knowledgeable manager that has a plan of how to grow you, then you probably will have that conversation in the beginning. But from experience, from my own work, that my career where I was an employee, I've never had a manager who would actually have a growth plan with me. Never. So I always felt like I was just floating around trying to catch up and do, kind of guessing, oh, what do they want me to do? Right. And when I started my own business and started employing people, I thought, okay, I'm going to be the best manager. I'm going to create the best environment for people. Right. So, but then it goes back to you owning your own career. And I thought that's why I love the work that you do, Rachel, that you said you say to your driven professionals that you have to lead your career, right? Don't put the responsibility on others. Lead your own career. And you do need to sit down and think, what do I want in my career? That's where you begin, right? And once you know your goal, whether it's financial or the type of work you want to do or the type of role you want to be in, do you want to be a manager? Or you don't want to be a manager, down the road. So have that kind of path and then discuss that with your manager. And then when you do your reviews, it will not come across bragging if you talk about, okay, this was the goal that we set. This is my goal. This is company goal. And this is what I've achieved. Again, you're just being factual, right? You're just talking about what you have achieved. And, again, going back to that quote, making sure that communication has taken place, you have that feedback loop, right? Because usually in the performance reviews, that's what you think, what you've achieved. And then you're asking your manager, asking for what were the expectations, their expectations met, right? And don't take it personally as if like, oh, they have different expectations, or don't make any assumptions. Just be curious and really be open. Oh, how do I meet expectations? How do I, do better in this work? And then when you're communicating what you've done and you ask, does this add value? Is this valuable, what I'm doing? So that then it's not really bragging, you're being factual, but also keeping that curiosity of where I can be better. Mm-hmm. Always ask that, right? Because then that puts back that humility on the table as well, right? Yeah. Where you know where your strengths are. But as we all are, even your manager sitting interviewing you, like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I would be interviewing people. They also don't know everything, right? Like, you're nervous, they're also nervous, so it's like, don't make any assumptions, just be curious and ask questions and have that confidence, but also humility as to, this is what I know, this is what my experience is, and then asking, how can I be better? Where can I be better? Where can I grow? Where do you think I should improve? And another example of practical communication and how results don't speak for themselves and how we all need to learn and grow. I had one employee where she was a high performer right away from the get-go, very knowledgeable, very driven. But in meetings, when she would speak to clients, I noticed that she would just speak like quieter and kind of like not really, almost like timid. And I mentioned to her in our coaching sessions and our reviews, performance reviews, just speak louder, just like get the volume up. Mm-hmm. And that was the only little piece that she needed to change, get the volume up. And once she started speaking up a little bit louder, the whole energy changed, right? She was more confident. The whole meeting had a completely different energy. And, so those little tweaks. But then again, if you don't have a manager who, pays attention, or maybe they don't have a skill of management, maybe they're growing as a manager yet, right? Again, we're not putting responsibility on them. Yeah. Put responsibility on yourself and ask them or ask other people, get a coach, get an advisor, get someone's opinion. Do not sit in your own head. Growth doesn't come from there. Yeah.
And exactly, just to the point where you mentioned about the managers, what happened is everyone else is so busy. So the managers, they also have their own targets. And on top of that, they're managing people that it is challenging for them as well to track all of these things. So some of them do a very good job, and then they are able to provide some very efficient feedback, but we can't just rely on that. As you said, we can rely on others. And that's why I believe that taking that control, understanding what you need to do so you can lead your career, that's the point. Because when you understand exactly what they need and how you can add value, mm-hmm. that's when the growth comes. And with that, the communication, because as you said, there are a lot of professionals, they're very good at whatever they are doing, but they just need to learn how to communicate what they are doing. Mm-hmm. And just back to what we were saying about the bragging and that, the balance between bragging. I love what you said about going through, asking questions and rely on the facts. I think that asking questions is the key. That shows that you're also humble. Mm-hmm. I think that sets a different tone when we are just trying to portray that we know everything. then that's when that ego comes in, or that type. And we need to make sure that we are well perceived working with others, because the workplace or life or business, we are always working with others. So we need to make sure that we are doing well connecting with people. And I think that's one thing, that when we are being honest about, if there's something that I don't know, just say, I don't know, but I'm curious. Can you tell me more about that? Or where, or how can I do that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And Helen, on that topic, just diving a little bit more on this, what do professionals often underestimate about how they come across in interviews or client calls or even online? What's your perception on that?
I think the value of preparation. I've been there for some reason, especially if you are a driven professional, if you high perform, if you're someone who wants to grow, you might have a bit of a pressure on yourself to think that you need to know everything, like as you were just saying, right?
Yeah.
And what happens then if you think that, you might expect from yourself to just show up to an interview, for example, and do amazingly, or have a client meeting and do amazingly without preparation. I think that is one of the things that communication is a skill. Being a professional is a skill. Doing it just similarly to how you do your work. It's a skill and it needs to be practiced every single day. So I would say that understanding that anything you find yourself in a whatever scenario, even growing, it's a skill. You know, having that humility, asking questions is a skill. You may not know what to ask. Thankfully, there are lots of tools these days that we can use those resources and find good questions, have in our mind in different scenarios. So we engage with people. So, but I would say that underestimating that it's a skill and that preparation makes a huge difference. So don't be afraid to be a beginner in whatever you're doing and spend time researching, preparing, even for that. If you're doing your performance review, for example, with your manager, prepare for that. Think about it. And then if you spend time on it preparing, then questions will come and you'll think more about your goal and, yeah, it will be just more purposeful. Yeah, I would say that preparation and being intentional with everything that you do at work.
And that's also how you're building your branding. And on that topic, I have something for you, Helen. So I ran a poll on LinkedIn and I asked the question, what's been your biggest challenge lately in terms of growing your career and how you've been shaping your career? And 40% responded that building a personal brand, which comes down to what we are talking. And you more than ever as a communication specialist and working with marketing. So what are the things that you believe that can be helpful to have in mind when the professionals are working intentionally about their personal branding?
Mm-hmm. Well, branding, let's talk about what branding is. Originally, branding is a stamp of quality. And then it became something that it's like, oh, that's a brand, that's who made it. But originally, it's that authenticity and quality that someone made it and I can trust it. So similarly, if you're thinking about your personal brand, what is it? What do you want to be trusted with? What do you want to be known for? What do you want people to come to you with type of questions or work or, so that's essentially what branding is. And if you know what you stand for, it aligns, of course, with your values, what you stand for, that's what becomes your personal brand.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Becoming that want to go person, right? Have something specific that people can go to you. Because I think one of the ways that you can think about people is exactly when they have some specialty. And let's say you were doing something at work and I don't know how to do that. Oh, go to Helen, right? I think that's how we are start building up that branding about that one thing that you're very good at.
Yeah. And one thing about branding also, especially for personal brand, it's a living thing. When we work on brands, if you even look at Nike or Apple, you look at their logo, right, over 10, 20 years, then you see how many variations were there. So one of the things I think, even when we work on brands with our clients, the assumption is that, okay, I just need to get it perfect. And this is what it is. This is who I am. This is what the logo is. But it doesn't work like that. It's okay to don't stress out that it's like, okay, I need to have this perfect tagline in my LinkedIn profile, what I am or who I am, what I stand for. Well, don't worry about it. Just put one that feels right to you right now. And then maybe in a week, you'll be thinking, oh, actually, I should tweak it. I should tweak this word. And that's how brands are born. It takes time for a brand to grow into a brand. You know, that if you see your favorite brand, it didn't just happen like that. It was a process of growth, and that's the whole goal, especially for personal brand. Your goal is not to have a perfect tagline of who on LinkedIn, but for you first to understand what you stand for, what you want to be known for, where you want to grow, and don't be afraid that it might evolve and you already have your brand. At the end of the day, you already have your brand. People already know you for something. Very often it could be good, like ask others because they already have an assumption of you. It's a perception, right? Perception is reality. That's what their marketing is, right? Everyone else already has a different perception of you. So
like it or not.
Yeah, like it or not, right? You already have a brand. So now it's, if you want to be intentional, just start being more purposeful and focused around, again, what do you want to be known for and trusted with in your profession or in your life.
And as you grow and you refine, let's say your branding, or even like as an example, the headline for LinkedIn or something, that's where the clarity comes into place. Because as more you know about yourself and as more as it's clear for you what you want to do, more that's going to be it's going to become clear, your headline, your tagline.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But you know what's the irony of marketing and branding and personal branding and those taglines and the clarity? That clarity, first of all, is for you.
Yeah.
It's not for others. You know, we think that in the end it will become for others to say like, oh, Rachel is a career coach, send her people to her, right? But in the beginning, it's for Rachel or for me or for you to understand what you stand for, right? And that process, say for marketing for companies, we go through a process so they understand first. So then they implement their own internal processes and their marketing internally, so people understand what the culture is and things like that. And only after that's established internally, then external people start noticing those patterns. And then from there, you start creating that consistency in how you talk and maybe words you use or slogans and things like that. Yeah, but that comes after the discovery of you realizing, oh, that's my thing. That's my brand.
Yes. That's how that applies for our personal lives, or that's why the companies go through all that exercise of
Exactly.
Defining your values, defining your vision, your mission. First, start with you, and then you have a clarity of who you want to actually demonstrate who you are. And Helen, another question actually under the answers for the poll, what's been your biggest challenge lately in your career life? Building the personal brand was 40%, but navigating change and uncertainty was 60%. And thanks for everyone that participate in the poll on LinkedIn and on Instagram. So now we can connect the dots here of the experience that Helen has been building her company over 20 years. And as you mentioned at the beginning, how we need to shift here and there, adapt, because, you know, the world is evolving and things are changing. And nowadays, the major change, it's not even really nowadays, but the AI changing the way we do the work and so many things. So, with AI changing how we work and communicate, what do you think that still can't be replaced and how people can stay relevant? And I would add to the point where I think AI in certain way is bringing this uncertainty for people, that feeling of uncertainty. Like, I don't know if my job is going to be replaced or am I going to be replaced? Things are changing. I think that's probably why we got 60% of the answers of this fear of the uncertainty. But that's pretty common for entrepreneurs. They are actually expecting the change. So what would you say about that?
I would say specifically to AI, I've been thinking a lot about it, like most of us. And I like going back and seeing, okay, what are the changes in society happened that impacted the way that we do work? Say it was industrial revolution, or there was an informational revolution, that knowledge is so important, was at a period of time where you have to go to university, you have to have this specific knowledge, because then if you know this, then other people don't know it, and that's how you set yourself apart. These days, knowledge is unfortunately almost disvalued. It's not the most important things, because knowledge is information is so accessible. You don't have to know something and study and sit at a library for 5 hours to then have a conversation about. You can look at AI tools and find out about a topic that you need to know just before you go into a meeting. So that doesn't set us apart, right? But what will, I think, set us apart is experience. So it's not information, and that's what AI cannot offer, at least today, that experience that humans can offer. Well, if we talk about uncertainty related to AI specifically, again, I would say, search your mind. What are you thinking about it? What are your thoughts? I see there are two camps where people think, oh, we're all going to be replaced by AI. I don't fall into that camp. Where I fall into is opportunities. AI just giving us opportunities. We can learn things. We can do things better. We can do new things. And that's where I believe is that it's not that AI would eliminate something. I mean, some things will just naturally be eliminated, but maybe they should be eliminated. Maybe we shouldn't be doing certain things. Even in design and marketing, I'm thinking to myself, when I first started my business, my agency, we had to spend so much time on designing cards for social media in Photoshop. That would take so much time. That should not take that much time, right? So some things should be eliminated. But also what I think what will happen, there will be some new things, some new industries that we don't have today. Some new jobs will be created that we don't have today. Similarly to email, when email came to be, I don't know if Postman was thinking, oh, that's it, post office, we're going to be eliminated. There's going to be no post office. Who's going to write letters? Well, they are still here in a different form. Yeah. Of course, people not mailing checks and things like that. Like even in my business, I'm thinking someone actually mailing me check, but we don't
letters anymore.
Yeah.
I love that, but
yeah, but again, we started writing more email, more in a different form. So if you are worried about the changes, or if you're worried about your job, get curious. That's what my recommendation would be. Get curious and start learning the technology, start learning how it can expand your skills, and be resourceful. I think that's one thing that will set people apart. If you are resourceful in your job, and if you even, you're accountant, or this is your area here, AI still can help you how to communicate better with clients, how to present numbers better, right? So how to be more. So yeah, get curious and see what you can learn and grow, and how you can be resourceful and improve what you already doing. Do it better. There's always room for growth. Just do it better, and that will add more value to what you do, and you will be more valuable. So welcome uncertainty, because uncertainty, that's how we grow in uncertainty. So yeah.
And that would apply for any type of change, right, Helen? Because we have the world, economies change. We hear about the layoffs and all of that, but that is happening since we were born, and things are still evolving and still growing and keep going. So I think that will apply for both. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Change is inevitable. Change is good. We want things to change. We don't want them to be the same. So just changing that perspective of, maybe it will be better. Just think about how many times you see, even with jobs, you know, if you were let go and then you found a better job or you started a business, or in the moment that change might be scary, and that's normal. That's our response, self-preservation. But in the end, it might work out even better. So if you're in a scenario right now that you're worried about the change, just think about the changes that you have already endured and where they brought you today. And that will give you relief and comfort knowing that things will work out.
Totally. What would you like to leave this episode today sharing, let's say, a drop of knowledge or wisdom with our audience? What would you like to share with our driven professionals today?
Say that, know that you have the power. Know that you have agency. As someone who has been running a marketing agency for 17 years, we always represent someone and almost act as their agent. But I love that word agency. It's much better to give people agency. That's why I love doing coaching and working with people, that they have agency. I love a quote where you can give a person fish or you can teach a person how to fish. Mm-hmm. So remember that you are that person. Teach yourself to fish. Remember that you have the power. Remember that you have the agency to make the change and have a conversation, have a career you want. And if you are in a career right now that you're thinking, well, I don't like my job, or something about your team or your manager, remember that specifically to managers, I would say your manager wants you to succeed. Your boss wants you to succeed. That's what I believe. Like if you have that mindset, it changes things. You remember that, oh, I have agency. I have the power. And you know what, back to that conversation where I said that my mindset was shifted when my coach said, oh, is that so? It was almost like I got like snapped out of some sort of a dream where I thought that someone else had the power over me to do certain things and do things in a certain way. But in that moment, I realized, oh no, my mind, my actions, my behavior, my feelings, I control that. I am I get to say what I get to decide where I'm going. I am the one who's leading my life. I'm the one who's leading my business, my career. And that's powerful, that to know that you have the power to do and achieve what you want to achieve.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you so much for being here, for being our episode today, sharing so much knowledge. And that's inspiring.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sticking around, staying with us. We just hope that this conversation inspired you to change your mindset and really to apply this mindset growth coming from this curiosity, understanding how you can add value to whatever you are at. And that's how you can grow and lead your career. We'll come back next week with another amazing episode from the Driven Career Podcast. And until then, stay driven.